Hi, hi, hi. Hello, moms and wives. Okay, I just pressed the live button. Let me know if this is working properly. If anybody's in here, if anyone can see me, if anyone can hear me, just go, hey, Carrie, hey. All right. Yes, girl, I'm in bed too. So I was so glad to see you in bed. It is a cold night and we need to be warm and cuddly and yes. Okay, good. So that means it's working good. Here, present. Hey, girl. Hey. All right. So I am going to let some people trickle in here and then we're going to go ahead and get started in about 1 minute. So I hope you guys are having a good, what's today? A good Tuesday. Hey, DeLauren. What's up, girl? Oh, so before I start, that girl, I'm turning on the heat if it gets too cold tonight. For the fab wife in the other post who asked, should there ever be a hush fund? She said, listen, I am all for wife having a separate account from her husband. However, it should never be a secret that that account exists. Does that make sense? Right? So we can have separate, but it shouldn't be a secret there because you wouldn't want him to have a secret account that you don't know about. He can know that you have this private, separate account, but it should not be a secret. That's no good. No bueno. No, no, no. Um, yeah. Yeah, it could be a fun account or it could be a, hey, life account or a account. You know, whatever you want to call it. But it should be known that it exists. You may not share how much is in there. You may not like those details. That's between you and your spouse to decide how much you want to share, but it shouldn't be a secret. That causes problems because if the shoe were on the other foot and you found out he had a secret account with $2 million in it, you'd be furious. Okay, so I see we have some fab wives in here, and that means you guys must also be fab moms. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with today's topic, which is managing money through motherhood. And what Ria said a little while ago is absolutely correct. There is nothing that can derail a budget faster than children if you let it. So now we're going to start to qualify some things. So let me introduce myself. So I'm Carrie Pink, better known as your financial stylist. And I am a mom of soon to be 6. So there's a bump there. DeLauren and I are like neck and neck on who's going to go first. She probably will. I think I'm a little bit behind her. So mom of 6, 4 girls, soon to be 2 boys, and ranging in age from 15 to soon to be newborn. If there's one thing that I'm asked all the time, it's how do you afford so many children? And we can talk about that later on in this presentation. These kids are killing my budget plan. Ria, come on. You only have 2. Give me a break. So I am a finance coach. I've been teaching finance since 2002. I originally started as a nonprofit where I was teaching group classes to people in New York City, actually, which is where I'm from originally. And it was because of a construction project that was going to displace a lot of people and gentrification was coming, and I wanted to give them the opportunity to set their stake in the ground and not be displaced because of lack of financial knowledge. So that's how I started, and then it's evolved over time. Then I created a blog, maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 years after that, but it's been a long ride for me. So I've been doing this a long time. Does not mean that I am perfect. Even those of us who teach finance go through financial stuff. And I'm going to share some of those things with you guys today so that you can better manage your own financial stuff. So let's get started with something that we probably are all very familiar with, right? What are some things that moms are already responsible for, right? So moms are responsible for children, clearly. We're responsible for if we have careers outside the home. If we're a stay-at-home mom, then we have this whole household we need to run, which is sometimes more overwhelming than going to work, right? Making sure that everything is clean and everything is washed and everything is cooked and all of these things. It makes you tired just thinking about it, right? And then when it comes to our children, we have this responsibility to them from an ethical standpoint, from a moral standpoint, from a physical standpoint, and then, of course, yes, from a financial standpoint, right? So what do we teach our children? We're responsible for teaching them manners. We're responsible for teaching them good hygiene. We're responsible for teaching them good eating habits, love, affection, how to not be bullies. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of all of these responsibilities that moms have. But how many of us really put finances into that equation as a responsibility that we have to teach our children? Any hands? Anyone have an opinion? Because from the moms that I talk to, most don't realize that they don't only have a responsibility to raise these little humans and make them amazing, self-sufficient adults who know how to cook, clean, wash, and iron, but they also need to be financially prepared for the world, right? So, and teaching them to how to have a strong financial foundation really starts with yourself, right? Because can I teach my kids how to have a solid financial foundation if I don't have one myself, right? So this is why managing money through motherhood becomes very complicated, because if I want my kids to have a better financial foundation and financial future than I do, somebody has to teach them. Why not let it be me? And for me to teach them, I first have to learn it for myself, right? Okay, so what makes managing money as a mother so difficult? And I have 3 ideas, right? And you guys tell me if you agree with these ideas or if there are other ideas that you think work better. But here are my 3 ideas for why managing money as a mom is so difficult. 1, it's because we want to give our kids the best, right? They come into the world, they are these perfect little cute human beings. We love them so much, and we want to give them the best of everything. And oftentimes, in addition to that, we want to give them what we didn't have. So we feel like we're overcompensating for our own childhood or our own young adulthood or our own whatever else that we feel like we missed out on. And we're trying to make up for that in how we raise our kids, in how we manage our money when it comes to our kids, in how we spend our money when it comes to our kids, right? Do all these things make sense? I see a lot of yeses popping up in the side panel. And then honestly, the last one, managing money through motherhood, is just hard because kids aren't cheap, right? They're not free. They come into the world with a price tag already. Labor, if you don't have insurance, is going to run you over $10,000. So from the second they come into the world, they're already costing you, right? They are already costing you. So preparing yourselves financially to be able to deal with all of these things that come along with motherhood becomes very important. Now, why should managing money as a mom be even more important than some of the other things? And it's not to say that we should sacrifice good hygiene, for financial stability. But what we're saying is finances are so important for a mom, especially because we leave legacies for our children. And our legacies need to include more than academic and professional legacies. There also needs to be financial legacies that are left. And that becomes so important when you start talking about what types of things do we want to leave behind for our children. It's nice to leave them grandma's pearls, but let's give them some financial pearls to go with that, right? So, and when we stop to think about what makes this so important, let's think about what kind of impression do you want to leave on your kids financially? What kind of impression do you feel like you've already set? And what type of financial impression did your parents leave on you? Right? So it becomes this whole big equation of money, right? So, do you guys hear my kids screaming? Can y'all hear my son screaming? I typically run into kid bombs, but today I was smart and I set a boundary and I locked the door. So if you hear strange screaming, that is my son. Okay, so let's talk about how we as moms can get control over our own finances so that we can not only, I know, how else we can get control over our own money so that we can improve, one, our own lives, two, be better role models for our children, three, be prepared to leave them a better financial legacy, and four, give them a stronger, more solid financial foundation, right? Y'all with me? This is what we're going to tackle tonight. It's a lot to talk about. I'm going to try to go through as much as I can, as concise as possible. And if anyone has questions, we will take those at the end. And then, of course, you can always find me because I'm a fab wife. Hello. This is not my first time at the rodeo. You guys can come hang out with me in the group. Okay. So the first thing we need to do, and I don't want to hear any groans and moans, but the first thing we need to do is set financial barriers for ourselves and for our families. Now, how do we do that? Or why do we do that? Well, number one, nothing great ever happens without a plan, right? No one haphazardly falls into success. No one haphazardly just wakes up one day and says, you know what? I'm rich. It doesn't work that way, okay? So we have to be willing to set some financial boundaries for ourselves as well as for our families so that we can create a strong box of parameters, financial parameters that we want to exist in, right? You guys following? So your wallet, moms, is not unlimited, right? We all know this. Yes? However, when it comes to our kids, we often act as if our wallets are unlimited. And this is something we have to stop doing. We are constantly saying yes. We say yes. We say yes. Why? Because of what I talked about before. Because we love them. Because we want them to have the best. Because we want them to have more than what we had. And the biggest culprit of them all is because we feel like they deserve it. They are good kids, right? How many? I have great kids. I have good kids. They deserve it. They deserve it. They deserve it. Let me tell you what they deserve it will do to you, okay? Yes, Selena, I am no guilt over here either. They deserve it. Here's what they deserve it will do to you. And this is why, as moms, we have to get rid of the they deserve it, right? I love my kids and they're so cute. And yes, I think they're the most beautiful things on earth. They deserve what I'm willing to give and no more, right? They do not deserve everything. We all believe we deserve everything. Do you get everything? Because I don't get everything. So if I have to live without getting everything, they also have to learn how to live without getting everything. Because if we don't do that, then we're going to raise some really entitled kids. And we don't want that. So, first thing, we're going to talk about mindset, right? And this they deserve it falls into financial mindset. Financial mindset is a part of financial psychology, and it sort of says your thoughts will start to control your hands. So your thoughts will control how you spend. What you think about money, what you know about money, how you were influenced by money growing up, your family history with money, this all has the impact on how you spend your money today. So financial mindset is one of the key things that needs to be brought under control before your habits can be brought under control, right? Your habits are a direct influence of your thoughts. What do you think about money? And how you spend your money is your habits show how you spend your money, right? So for us to conquer our financial picture, we have to start in our heads, right? We have to start in our minds. And so once we get rid of the I deserve it or they deserve it, because some moms have the I deserve it too, right? Where we're hiding bags in the closet from our husbands, right? That happens. No? Just me? No? Never mind. Okay. Just me. I know it's not just me. We have the I deserve it too. And sometimes we also take on this I deserve it mindset, and that passes down to our kids, right? So we need to pull that under control for ourselves if we want to pull them under control, right? So, and if we continue to give them everything we think they deserve for their entire lives, when it's time for us to receive what we deserve, we're going to be broke. Let's just be clear. Okay? We cannot continue to spend haphazardly on our children without providing for ourselves financially for the future, because there is no loan system for retirement. So that's when the reality really starts to kick in. And we all think that we're going to be young and hip and cool and sexy and hot and working forever, and we're not, right? There's going to come a day where we are going to want to live the relaxed, retired lifestyle that we know we deserve because of how much time we put in. But if we continue to just spend and spend and spend and spend and spend and spend on what we think we deserve today, we won't have it to give ourselves the lifestyle we deserve tomorrow. Does that make sense? I hope everyone is following and agrees, right? So let's do a little exercise. If I were to ask you to add up the total amount of all the possessions in your house, this includes clothes, shoes, furniture, bags, kids' toys, kids' clothes, kids' accessory stuff like bikes and big wheels and all that stuff. If I asked you to add up the total that you have spent on all of these possessions, electronics, computers, iPhones, all of it, and add it up, would the amount spent be more than what you've saved for your future? Would the amount that you've spent on your kids, in their closets, in their rooms, on their activities, on their toys, would that equal more than what you've saved for their future? Because if it does, your financial picture is off, right? Now, probably you guys are sitting there and you're like, oh, clutch my pearls. Oh my God, if I add up the cost of everything I've ever spent, whoo, on this house, in this car, and in this closet, oh no. Yes, yes. The value of what you have put aside for your future and for your children's future should be more than the possessions in your hand. Does that make sense? Scary, but true, right? How do we get there? We're going to talk about that. So, a house, at the end of the day, what is it? It's a pile of stuff, right? It's a pile of stuff with a lid. And in the grand scheme of things, what does it really get us having all of these possessions for ourselves, for our children, all these clothes, all these toys, all these shoes, all these bags, all these, what does it get us in the grand scheme of things? Especially today when we have seen things like Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma come through and destroy people's lives. And everything that they've spent money on was in this rectangle with a lid on it, and it's all now gone. How does that help our financial lives, right? So a couple of things that we want to talk about, right? We want to talk about how we get this picture in order. How do we line this up? How do we get better at fixing our equation? I want the value of my future accounts to be more than my possessions today. And that doesn't mean that you can't have clothes, or you can't have shoes, or you can't have bags, or you can't have a nice house. It's just, how do I get the alignment right so that I'm not living in a materials-based life when I should be living in an assets-based life, right? Does that make sense? All right, so the first thing, I hope you guys have your pens ready. You want to move from being what's the right word? You just want to move from being a spending family to a needs-based family. And how do we do that? A couple of ways. If I want to create a needs-based family, that means I don't go to the mall out of boredom, right? Just one example. Because retailers make new items every season. That means every time I go to the mall, and if I go with my children, we are all going to see things we like, we want, and we may buy if we're compelled enough. So one way to avoid that is just avoid going to the mall, because you will always see something, right? So shopping is not a hobby. No one should be shopping because they're bored. No one should be going to the mall because it's Saturday and it's raining and we don't have anything else to do. This gives you an opportunity to create activities with your family instead that don't lead to you impulsively spending. So my kids know, don't look at me because you saw some shoes somewhere that you want. You got X amount of shoes in your closet, and I'm not buying you any more until you need some, right? Jeans, your jeans fit, right? Then you don't need anymore. When they don't fit anymore, then we'll talk about shopping because of something you need. So those are the only times I step into a retailer's world, because the retailers psychologically, and this is something, guys, that you guys really need to understand. Retailers study psychology, and they know how to get you to open your wallet and spend from the second you open the door to their store. Things are positioned to make you buy. Things are emails, the way that the emails are sent, the way that they're worded, the even down to the colors that they use. Advertising is really psychology of the human mind to sell. So if I'm consistently putting myself in the position to be sold to, I'm going to continue to buy. So moving from this just sort of freewheeling model and moving to a needs-based, I will spend a lot less time in front of those retailers who have spent millions and millions of dollars figuring out how my brain works and how to sell to me, right? So I just limit my exposure to them. My kids are very aware of that. Their shopping here is a needs-based thing, right? So that's number one. Number two, sacrifice. Sacrificing is a big thing when it comes to getting financially stable, right? So that means you may have to downsize and be okay with that. It means you may have to start talking the word budget with your children and start telling them how you plan to tighten the belt over the next however long period of time. It also means, for me, for example, I like high quality things, right? I like designer clothes, I like designer shoes, I like designer bags. I do not like designer prices. I don't like full price. I don't pay full price for anything. There is no prize for paying full retail price. All you're doing when you pay full retail price is giving the retailer the maximum amount of profits that they could make on an item sold. There's no prize for that. The only person winning is them. You're not winning. That item is going to be 75% off in 6 weeks. You're not winning, right? So my kids know when we shop, they know, Mom, where's the sales? And so as you start to include your family in these conversations, then they'll start to get the hang of it. And they will start to pull in their own mindset into the conversation. So my kids know that we're on a budget. And in that budget, we have a box. And there's a set box for fun. I talk about this all the time. So I follow a budgeting concept. It's called the 50-30-20. And in the 50% of my income, that goes to living expenses. That means mortgage or rent, car, transportation, all those things have to fit into that 50% of my money. In the 30%, that's the number that I'm putting to savings and debt. Why do I put those two groups together? Most people do not. Here's why I do it. Because if you are like most Americans who have significant amount of debt, then when you start to pay off your debt, I want you to automatically reallocate that dollars that you were spending on debt and now put them into savings. Everyone tells you to save 10% of your money. 10% is not enough. We all need to be saving 20 to 30% of our money. However, the average American is only saving 5% of their money or less. We have to fix this. Why? Because they're spending 20% of their income or more on debt. Once we get rid of the debt without taking on new debt, then you can save 25 to 30% of your income. That's how you get that done. And am I just talking this? No, I have lived it. I don't have any consumer debt. I have student loan debt, and that is it. My husband and I, 3 to 4 years ago, we made major sacrifices to our lives to get our savings above our possessions. And so we moved from a beautiful, big, nice apartment in New York to a very small apartment with our 4 kids. We had 3 kids at the time. Yeah, 3 kids at the time. Didn't matter. We downsized to a smaller place. We were paying less than $1,000 a month in New York City. We had 2 cars. They were both paid for. We parked one up. We had one child in private school. We took her out and put her in public school. We were able to save $2,000 a month. Okay, so back then we were making, between the two of us, $160,000 a year. We saved $2,000 a month, where $1,200 went into an investment account and $800 we saved in cash. Within 3 years, we saved over $100,000. So it is possible to change your financial situation 110%, but it's what are you willing to sacrifice and how are you willing to get your family on board? And we were very clear with our kids. We still had the box in our budget, and we said to our kids, this is your play box. This is how much money we have every month to do fun things. And we would make them choose. Okay, my daughter, for example, this year, she wanted to go to Myrtle Beach. She wanted us to go as a family. And we said, okay, we could probably, because I am the queen of frugal and I'm the queen of a deal and I'm the queen of finding a sale, we can probably do a family trip to Myrtle Beach for the weekend for $500. And then she decided she also wanted to do cheer. Well, cheer was also $500. So I said, look, you have this idea. You want to go to Myrtle Beach? Here it is, Myrtle Beach over here, $500. And you also want to do cheerleading. It's the same $500. I'm not spending both $500. So you pick. Do you want to go to Myrtle Beach for one weekend? Or do you want to go to cheer for a whole semester? And she chose cheer. And we were more than willing to spend the $500 for her to do cheer. We were willing to spend the $500 either way. It was just one $500 that we were willing to spend. And so once you put your kids in the position to make financial choices, now you're activating their own financial mind, right? But you got to be willing to set those boundaries for yourself first, right? You've got to create a box in your budget. So after my 30% of savings and debt, the last 20% of my income is always fun money. And we spend that however we like, because we've already taken care of every single bill and we've already saved till the cows come home because we don't have any other debt, right? So we can save 25. I was saving 25% of my income. And actually my living expenses were less than 50%. So I think I was saving a little bit more than 25, maybe 30% of my income. And then we still had this 20% that we were able to do whatever we wanted with every single year. We took our kids to England one year, all of them. We took them to Paris. We took them to California. We took them to the Caribbean. We went to Trinidad and Grenada, and now we flew to each place. Because of the choices that we made and the sacrifices that we made, we were able to give them experiences over things. We don't care as much about things as we care about experiences. And experiences I'm willing to pay for, but even those I want to do on a budget, right? Okay, so that's sort of my story. And you think about it, what do they really miss out on if you don't buy them every single thing they want? What do they lose? Especially if you're able to give them an experience instead. Especially if you're able to say, look, me and dad need a break, and this summer you're going to go to sleepaway camp for 2 weeks because we were able to save all this money. Think about the trade-offs. Your house and all the things in it are lovely, but how much more do you really need? How much more do they really need? And think about how many times do you buy your kids something and then it ends up on the floor in a week. And then you're pissed. I know I get pissed. And then I'm like, I shouldn't have bought this for you. So that's why we stopped. We learned that they didn't really appreciate it. They were just asking because why not? If I can ask and they're going to say yes, I'm going to keep asking. So once they learn that the buck stops here, then they start to make smarter choices too, and they learn to only ask for things when they really want it also. So it's an entire mindset shift. It's an entire culture shift. Ugh, it's a lot. Okay, so remember what I said. One, set the box. So that means you have to be living off of a budget. And if you don't have one, you can download one off of my website, yourfinancialstylist.com. And it's already set up. It's an Excel spreadsheet. It's already set up with the 50, 30, 20 already built in. All you do is enter your own information and it does all the math for you. So that makes your life easier. 2, extracurriculars. This is something that I know parents are like, I want my kid to play the piano and I want them to swim and I want them to dance and I want them to speak Chinese and I want them to do this. And then they have to know how to line dance and all these other things. You have to limit activities. You have to understand that every time you sign your kid up for an activity, you're signing yourself up for an activity. And that means you have to drive them around. You have to spend money on gas. You have to pay for the activity. You're probably eating on the road because you're not at home. And it just incurs additional costs. My kids know every semester they each get one activity. Maybe if we had fewer kids, maybe we would give them 2. I don't know. But everybody gets one activity that's paid for. If they can find another activity that's very, very low cost or free, then they can do 2. This year, I had 2 daughters in cheer, 1 in volleyball. Over the winter, I'll have another one in cheer, 1 on theater club. And then in the spring, we'll have 1 in lacrosse, 1 in something else. I don't know. It keeps me busy, but everyone gets 1 activity. Whatever they want, we open that parameter, right? And say, whatever it is that you want to do, you'll do, but you only get 1. And you have to stick with it for the whole time because we're paying for it. We used to have them lined up in so many different things, and it was costing us so much money and then really burning us out on time and energy and not giving us time to really regroup as a family and just spend time together. We're always running. 3, get your family involved in the conversation. You have to get comfortable talking money in your household with your husband, with your children, explaining to them boundaries, explaining to them financial limits, explaining to them budgeting, explaining to them why their future and your future are important, and that's why we have to make financial sacrifices today. Number 4, say no. They won't die. I promise you, because there's something else that they're going to want as soon as you turn around. By the time you say no for this thing, in a day or 2, they'll forget about it and they're going to want something else. And then you just say no again and the cycle continues. And number 5, be creative, right? So there are so many things you can do as a mom because you are the matriarch of your household and your family, where it doesn't require spending a lot of money. Things like Groupon, you have the world at your disposal. You've got all these resources on free activities to do with your kids. I do so many free things with my kids, and they think that like we are just living life, right? Because they don't expect that it needs to cost money for them to have a good time. So these are my tips on how I manage my money through motherhood. And it really starts with your mindset. It's not really about hardcore activities. It's more about changing the way you think and introducing that new thought process to your family, getting financial boundaries set in place, creating a budget, setting the box for fun, and then playing as much as you want in that box of fun. There's really no deprivation here. There's no you can't do or you can't have. It's just this is as much as we can do in this time period. And next month when the money re-ups again, then you can do more. So they never feel like they're missing out, but we've set our boundaries. And that's the most important thing when it comes to managing money as a mom. And that's all I got. So if anybody has any questions or things they want to say or add, drop them in the comments. And I will be more than happy to answer, read, request, whatever you have. I don't know. I don't know if my comment box is updating. So I don't know. How can I know? Let's see. Hello. Mine is not updating. Can I get it on my phone and see? I'm going to try to see if I can see this in the group and then see if you guys have questions. Oh, I see that there are questions happening, but I can't tell how to get to them. Help. Let's see. I'm not sure, guys. I can't see the comments. It's sort of stopped. Let's see. Okay, there we go. See the comment. Okay, I see questions now. Hold on. All right, I gotta scroll back. I'm glad that you guys thought this was helpful. That's really good. You guys are so welcome. What state do you live in while saving that large amount? I lived in New York City. I lived in Brooklyn. When I tell you that I sacrificed to make that happen, I mean, every dollar that I made, I was saving. I had rent at like less than 30% of my income. Living expenses, like household stuff, was low. I had no car payment. I had car insurance, but my husband and I have both been drivers since we were 18. So our car insurance for New York City was less than $300 for 2 drivers and 2 cars, which is like unheard of because we have really good driving records. I have no credit card debt. My student loan payments were probably my most expensive thing, and those were $600 a month. And it still left us able to save $2,000. The 20%. So someone asked, and so we live in Charlotte now. We did not move here because of financial reasons, right? We never struggled in New York because I've been teaching finance since I was 22 years old. So finances and managing money and holding on to money has always been a big deal to me. So when I was in college, I probably had a few moments of like crazy spending, and my parents paid off all my credit card debt and was like, don't do that again. But they still never taught me about money. And I had to learn on my own because after my dad paid it once, he was not paying it again. And I ran up my credit cards again, and then I had to work to pay them off. So I learned my lesson. And then I had all types of other financial things happen that were like crazy. So I lived in New York City when I was saving $2,000 a month. The 20% of income for savings, is that general plus retirement plus education savings? Okay, so the 20 to 30%, typically, so depending on what you're saving in retirement, this can be an inclusive number or it can be separate. For me, it was separate, right? So, well, no, that's not true. It was inclusive. So I was doing maybe 10% in retirement and then 20% on my own, where like 15% was going to my own personal investment portfolio, and then like 10% was going to cash, or 5% was going to cash. What? 10% was going to my investment portfolio. Then I had a 5% match from my job. So that was 15% over there. And then in my own personal investment portfolio, I was doing another 15%. right? So that's 15 and 10, that's 25. And then I was saving 5% in cash. Yes. So it was retirement plus my own investments and savings. Education savings. Let me say a word about education savings. Education savings I do not support education savings accounts because they count as income for your children. And if your children get scholarships, you are going to be stuck having to pay a penalty on that money. So I always recommend parents, if you want to save money for your children's education, get a mutual fund in your own name and know that that one mutual fund is going to be for your kids. But don't put it in their name, because then if you're not in the position financially where they where they financially don't need to use your income, or if something happens and they don't go to college or they get full scholarships, you're gonna pay a penalty on that money, and it's not worth it to pay a penalty on money that's yours when you could just put it into a regular investment portfolio in a mutual fund and let it grow. Because all an investment savings is they're taking your money and they're investing it anyway. So why not invest it for yourself, for your kids? And then if they don't go to college or if they get a full scholarship, then you can cash that out at some point and help them buy a house or something, right? It doesn't need to be for, you don't need to do an education savings account. Okay, Selena is asking me, do you think allowance is important? Absolutely, allowance is important because it teaches your kids the value of a dollar. Your kids will be a lot faster to spend your money than they will to spend their allowance money. My kids, we're not giving them allowance right now, but we used to give them allowance when we lived in New York, and it was based off work. So if they did the chores that they were allotted for that week, then they earned a certain amount of money at the end of the week. And from that money, things that they wanted to do, that's how they had to pay for it, right? So if they wanted to go to the mall and eat Chick-fil-A, then, well, you need to use your allowance money. You're not using my money because you have money, right? And they still were required to save a portion of their allowance, but then they also had the liberty to spend, and they have no bills, so they're able to spend a little bit more than the average person. But with that allowance, they had to be smart, because don't look at me and tell me you spent all your allowance and now you want whatever, because I'm not going to buy it, right? Sorry. You have to learn to manage your money the same way I have to learn to manage mine. And it starts to teach them from early that money is not unlimited and that it has to be properly managed in order to do the multiple things you want to do. One of the biggest things I'm talking to my kids about right now is, if you spend it all today, right? So they receive money weekly or bi-weekly now, right? And because they're older and there's always something they want to do, usually they get their money on a Friday, and then by Sunday it's gone. And then the next week, because they're at school all week, they're like, oh, well, I don't need any money. But every so often something comes up in that next week and they're like, oh, I wish. And I'm like, well, stop spending all your allowance when you get it on Fridays. You have to learn how to conserve. Okay. Ria, yes, I know. Listen, if you already have the 529, I mean, if I were you, listen, I am not an investment expert. Let's say that first, for starters. I'm not registered or certified as as an investment advisor. I'm just telling you from my own research and my own experience and the things that I've learned over time, that one, you'll probably save money in fees doing it yourself. You won't have to be limited in the things that you invest in. And it's like a 401k, right? Like, do we need 401ks? People who don't know the stock market need 401ks because they need someone to sort of guide them. But as you learn more, then you start to realize, I want more options for myself. So an education savings or a 529 or a Coverdell, they limit your options and what you can invest in, which means they're also limiting how much you can make. I don't want anybody limiting how much I can make on my own money. So I want to invest on my own, even if it's for my kids, right? That's just my take. Okay, great information regarding scholarships. Scholarships. Listen, I can give you guys, I have, maybe, Ria, maybe I can give you something to put together for after that you can share on scholarships in particular. I have with my kids, this is something that's good to share. With my kids, we've already had these conversations. They already know if they go to a public college, mommy and daddy will pay for it. If they go to a state college, mommy and daddy will pay for some of it. And if they go to a private college, they better get into those scholarship books a year in advance because we're not paying for it. Because private college is so expensive. And here's a rule of thumb, if the career that they're coming out of college with does not earn as a starting salary more than what you're going to spend on that education, you're already starting them behind the 8 ball. Whatever degree you're going to get, the income that they're going to make in year 1 needs to be more than what you paid for that education. So for example, I went to college. I went to city college in New York City. My education cost $17,000. My first job out of college, I got paid $35,000. So my income was already double what I paid for my education. When I went to graduate school, I paid $78,000 for my master's degree. My first job out of grad school paid me $83,000. The degree that you're getting, the income that you're going to receive in year 1 has to be more than what you paid for that education. Otherwise, you will never pay those loans off. You will be behind the 8 ball forever. Okay? And so that's an important thing. My kids know, listen, you go to public college, we're paying all the way. Go, girl. State college, we're going to give you some, and you're going to have to figure out some other things. That means grants, some scholarships. Maybe you're going to have to work. We'll see. I worked all 4 years of college. They won't die. And private college is just so expensive, especially if you're going to come out with some basket weaving degree. I'm not doing it. It may be nice to go. I went to an Ivy League college for grad school, and I paid for it myself. So, and I sort of give them the same thing. I'm like, you can go to state or public for college and then go to an Ivy League when it counts, which is for grad school. But that's just me. Okay. So are there any other questions? Where were you when I was at St. John's? Well, when you were at St. John's, I was probably at Hofstra University, and I was paying for school out of my own pocket because my parents were like, no, we're not paying for this. And I ran out of money quickly. And when I ran out of money, I transferred from Hofstra to Hunter College in Manhattan. And then I was able to just pay that myself from my little job. And then I took loans for what I wasn't able to pay. And it was only $17,000 after the 4 years. So that's probably where I was when you were at St. John's. I was right up the road at Hofstra. Okay. We need a series on student loan repayment. Girl, you got to treat that debt the way you treat any other sort of consumer debt. You see how people snowball their credit card debt? Once you're done with credit card debt, you need to start snowballing your student loan debt. Don't fall for you've got 10 years to pay this, or you've got 20 years to pay this. In that 6-month grace period after I graduated from college, I paid off 2 of my student loans. Like, I was OD with paying them. And then after that, I was like, oh, I'll take my time because I knew I wanted to go to grad school. Probably shouldn't have done that. I probably should have kept snowballing them the way I was doing it before. So I still have student loan debt now, and I've been out of grad school almost 10 years. So, okay, how much do you have to start a portfolio? Depends on which bank you go to. So if you do online trading, which is the best way, let's talk about investments for a second. You've got to get educated in investing before you put any money into it. I know people will point you to these micro investors where things like Stash and Acorn and Capital, where you can take $5 and you can get started in investing. That's great, but you still need a basics of understanding of investing if you're going to really take that money and grow. I sat down for like 3 to 6 months and studied investing before I started playing with my own money. And you can actually you can practice with fake money on a lot of these websites. So I use Capital One 360 because it used to be Share Builder, which used to be ING. So that tells you how long I've had it. And I made a simulated watch list. If you want to learn about just the basics about investing, on my website, yourfinancialstylist.com, there are 12 steps you need to know to start investing. And then from there, I also have a video series on how investing is like shoe shopping, because I know women understand shopping and fashion, and it's the easiest way for me to explain it. Going to buy stocks is like going to the mall, and we can talk about that. But Share Builder, you don't need anything to start. I mean, you can just set up an account with like $25. There's some banks like Bank of America, you need $2,500 to start. So it depends on which bank you go to. But if you do a self trading, then you don't need a lot to start at all. $25, you can get started, and you can make monthly deposits of $10 if you want to. It doesn't have to be a crazy amount. Okay, how did you get your husband on board with money management, or was he already good with finances? Girl, whew, that's a whole nother live stream. My husband was not good with money. I controlled all the money in my house. From when we first got engaged to when we got married. And it was difficult because he just the concepts were like pew over his head. So for me, the easiest thing for me was to just run it all. So I was doing all the bills, all the saving, all the investing. And it was crazy because he would question me like I was on the witness stand, because he didn't understand and he wanted to understand, but he was like angry and it was rough. And finally I was like, you know what? I have to teach him, because if I don't, then this is going to be ugly in the long term, right? Because he felt like, well, I'm putting money in and I have no clue how it's working or how it's going. And it wasn't easy. So it took a while to get him on board. I took over. I ran the show for a long time. He just put his money, he just handed over the check, girl. Hand over check. And now, he has learned over time, especially because I don't work a regular 9 to 5 anymore. And I haven't in over 2 years. So he now gets to sit in that driver's seat, and he's like, oh my God, I totally understand now what you used to go through. So now he's like totally on board. Okay. So you mentioned not doing a 401k. No. 401ks are a good thing because they give you free money. What I'm saying is, okay, if I put 5% in my 401k or 10% in my 401k, plus I get a 5% company match. Well, now I have that pot of money, that's 15% being saved, 5% of which I didn't contribute, right? Now, if I have on top of that an investment portfolio that I'm building for myself, then I'm free to pick whatever I want. Now, a 401k some of them have really good options. I'll tell you, some of my greatest success in investing came from within my 401k, because I was investing in a sector, an industry that was like on fire, and my returns were like 23%, like really ridiculous amounts of money. So, so yes, you should definitely, every single person should be signed up for their 401k, because most people are not ready to invest on their own. So the 401k is a great way to get started in investing and get your feet wet and really understand what you're doing if you take the time to learn. And yes, you should take the company match. And yes, you should exceed that company match, because more than likely, if you're not saving anywhere else, if you only do enough to get the company match, you're probably under saving. You always have to do more. I don't care what anybody tells you. There are a lot of financial experts out there who will be like, do enough to get the match. No, they want you to be broke. You're going to be poor when you're in retirement if you only do the match. You have to do more. What's your take on IRAs? I think they're great. I used to have a 401k and an IRA and a private investment account. So any way that you can stash money, stash it, because you're going to need it. Plain and simple. All right. Well, this was awesome. I am 49 seconds over my time. So this was awesome. I really, really, really enjoyed being with you guys tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed having me as well. Rhea and Fab Wives, DeLorean, I want to thank you guys so much for allowing me to come into the group today and share all of this information. I really hope that you guys have soaked it in from the mindset to the practical. Because it's a lot. It's a lot that we need to conquer as mothers, period, right? And our children's legacies and their financial health and their financial wellness depends on it down the road. So thank you guys. You can find me. So I have a mom blog, which is carriepink.com. And there I just talk about mom life and some finance, but more mom lifestyle stuff. And then yourfinancialstylist.com, which is my finance blog. So feel free to come visit with me, hang out with me. I also have a Facebook group. It's called the Hot Pink Mom Tribe, and we talk mommy stuff in there. We're actually doing a finance challenge right now. We're doing a holiday savings challenge. We're already in week 3 though, so, and we only have 5 more weeks to go. So, yeah, I've got a lot going on. Come hang out with me. Find me on Instagram. I'm at Carrie Pink on Instagram, and I'm at Your Financial Stylist as well. And I hope that I get to see you guys again soon. Thank you so much, and I hope everybody has a great, great night. Okay, bye.